You're listening to Pacifica Radio on KPFK 90.7 FM Los Angeles, 98.7 FM Santa Barbara, 93.7 San Diego, and 99.5 Ridgecrest, China Lake.
What's new about Tiger Woods?
Michael Jackson.
Elvis Presley.
O.J. Simpson.
Go Harrison.
Talk show. Random, political, outrageous, philosophical, analytical, passionate, sunsets, roadkill cooking tips, open-minded, swordsman, bent, resolute, investigative, companion, fearless, piercing the cloud of mainstream entertainment.
Go Harrison.
We are in L.A. Harrison with you, your new best friend. Welcome. It is a couple of minutes past the top of the hour. Special edition of Go Harrison. We're going to talk today about what is actually going on. Compass to the Capitol. That would be the capital of the United States. That would also be the White House. That would be actually everywhere. Ubiquitously, everybody is slaughtering each other to become the new king, the new queen, whatever it is, emperor of the brand new, brave new world. This is the ultimate Orwellian orgasm. This is Aldous Huxley's favorite moment in Earth. And I have with me one of your favorite people as we talk about how things are likely to unroll within this next hour. You've been following Donald Trump. In fact, how could you not? Even if you don't own a 400-pound appliance bolted to the wall with cables going out to a head end called Time Warner, even if you don't have DirecTV, if you don't have Dish, if you have no idea what's going on, if you've been sitting in a cornfield in Wisconsin eating bratwurst, you still know about Donald, Bernie, and Hillary. And you think if you're watching the TV set, there are only two people in the race. Did you know that? There's Donald Trump and there's Hillary. And then there's this, what's his name? The Saunders. Was it Mrs. Something, right?
Ernie the Cookie Monster.
Ernie the Cookie Monster. That voice. I know that voice. I've heard it before. It sounds like Greg Palast. Do you like this uncontrived segue? I know you do. Greg Palast, investigative reporter whose news-breaking stories appear on BBC television, on The Guardian, Rolling Stone magazine. You can read and watch his reports anytime at gregpalast.com. I'm going to spell that because it's radio, and we don't have closed captioning quite yet. GregPalast, gregpalast.com. He is the author of the New York Times bestsellers, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, Billionaires and Ballot Bandits, Armed Madhouse, and the highly acclaimed Vulture's Picnic. Yeah, here we are. It's a Vulture's Picnic again, isn't it? And we're going to get into what that actually means. He's best known here in America for uncovering Katherine Harris's purge of black voters from Florida's voter rolls in 2000. And now there are other people that may or may not look exactly like Katherine Harris in 2016 looking to purge voters from the voter rolls again. We're going to take a look at that in just a moment. Greg is also currently finishing the final frames of his new film on the upcoming theft of this 2016 election, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, a tale of billionaires and ballot bandits, a triple alliteration, so infrequently heard in today's modern lexicon. And I want to welcome you to Go Harrison, my good friend Greg Palast.
Quite an introduction, but those who are wearing the chip already knew it.
Thank you. It's fully embedded not only in my dog, but in me because I walk my dog, and therefore they know where I am.
Right.
Did I happen to mention to you, by the way, now that we're talking about passports? Were we? We are now.
Sure we are.
My U.S. passport has a chip in it, the new one.
Yeah.
They embed it in the back page. You can't feel it. It's very thin. Mm-hmm. Sometimes a passport could get wet. Did you know that? It may not look like it, but let's just imagine you spilled a drop of water on it.
And you wouldn't do that, though.
And I would never spill a drop of water on it and then put it in the microwave for just 1 second to get rid of that water, and that chip just sparks and it's gone. And I'm untrackable with my passport. It was a mistake. But what's a mother to do? Now, we've got this incredible election. It's probably the most awake Americans have been in 15 years. During the Bush administration, there were us, and then there were them. Them were eating Twinkies, napping, watching the war on the TV, and they were having a swell time. And then us, by the hundreds of thousands showing up in the streets going ape, this little tiny cabal of top-secret people. But now the whole country is actually interacting. Not maybe in our favorite way, but they're awake, Greg. This is maybe, as Dickens would say, the best of times and the worst of times.
Do I have a choice? Yeah. Well, I'm back from exile. Because I do investigative reporting, which, as you know,
Right.
is not permitted under Patriot Act 3 in the U.S. So I've been abroad working for BBC Television, The Guardian, and Al Jazeera. But I've returned now, work for Rolling Stone. And I heard you do some rocker thing here, so that's what I'm. No, I don't know. So
Right.
What we're trying to do is now pull down the pants of American democracy, let people know that Uncle Sam has small hands, and we don't count all the ballots, and that's my big concern, and that's kind of why I'm here today.
Yes, in fact, your most recent article, which I'm holding here, this is the print version.
They have to accept that.
Remember print? Yeah. Analog. You can actually print these articles out, but they're online. That's the best part. GregPalast.com. And your latest one is called Placebo Ballots, Stealing California from Bernie Using an Old GOP Vote-Snatching Trick.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wish I had a little symphony in here to go, what? With the music. What are we talking about here?
We're talking, we're talking about something called provisional ballots.
Yeah.
Do not go to sleep. Wake up, America. Wake up, California. Whoop, whoop. This is a Palast special alert. And the reason I'm giving you this special alert is that there's a big hunk of Californians, a couple million, that are independent voters, or as they call them in California, NPP, for no party preference voters.
My people.
Yeah. Right. It's an NPP thing.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you're NPP and you've come out of the closet as NPP and you're independent, you still can vote in the Democratic Party primary, not the Republicans. The Republicans are closed, shut down.
Well, that's a truth. I mean, we all know that universally.
Right, they're locked up.
Yeah.
But if you can vote in the Democratic primary, however, you have to go through kind of like a chutes and ladders, Uncle Wiggily, pass the snark procedure to get that Democratic Party primary ballot. So if you want to vote for Bernie or Ernie or Mrs. Clinton, that you can do, but you have to follow this procedure. And you have to walk in and you have to say, I'm an NPP voter. I want a crossover, get ready for the terms, crossover Democratic Party ballot. You don't want a cross-dressing. You don't want a cross-out. You want a crossover Democratic Party ballot. You have to ask for it. Then you can vote.
I have to remember that phrase?
Yeah, because they're supposed to ask you, but they usually don't, and so you have to ask yourself. Vote early because these things are going to run out. I can tell you right now they haven't printed enough.
Did Mayor Daley used to say that? Vote early and vote often?
Right. And I was in Chicago, believe me. I lived on a street where the candidate for mayor against Daley was on my street, and they arrested him for being too close to the polls, like half a mile or something. Then the state police, who are Republicans, closed off the street and arrested the Chicago cops. So it was just it's like big fish eating little fish. So if you don't want to be eaten on Election Day and you're an independent voter, no kidding, you have to ask for a crossover Democratic Party ballot. And then you can vote for your choice for the nominee for president. If you don't ask, you don't get. And you will get a ballot. If you don't ask for it, you're going to get a ballot that you'll say, hey, isn't someone running for president? And it won't be there, and you're out of luck. Okay?
Wow.
Now, here's some of the nasty things that are going on. They're supposed to ask you if you want that ballot. If they don't, okay, but in places like Orange County, a very progressive, open-minded place like Orange County.
I've always thought so.
They're telling poll workers, and you'll love this, Kerry.
Yeah.
Mr. Harrison, they are telling the poll workers to give NPP voters something called provisional ballots. Provisional ballots. Now, don't take it. That's evil. It's bad. It is not what you should have. It's illegal for them to tell you that you have to vote if you're an independent on a provisional ballot. You say, I don't even know what a provisional ballot is.
And that's probably good.
It's
important.
I call them provisional ballots because I call them placebo ballots because they make you feel like you voted, but you haven't.
Like Facebook.
Right.
What do you think about this? There, I'm doing democracy.
Right. So you can vote on provisional ballot if you wish, but it's like voting on bubbles.
So we're going to talk about that in just a second. I just want to reintroduce you because, as Dorothy said in The Wizard of Oz, people come and go so quickly here. They drive, they get in their car, they get out of their car. We're talking right now with Greg Palast. He's an investigative reporter whose news-breaking stories endlessly appear on BBC television. You've read him for many years now in The Guardian, and he's brought back here to the United States out of exile where he wasn't kidding. He was not able to do the stories that you and I that we pine for, that we hunger for, that we salivate for, not allowed to do them, so was banished to an island across the Atlantic Ocean called England, from which many of us once upon a time hailed. What an interesting irony that is.
Yeah, it's a little island off the coast of Ireland.
Yeah, right.
England.
And so from there, you've been doing the stories and telling us what's going on in our own Capitol Hill. Well, now you're back thanks to Rolling Stone, and you're doing investigative reports on the election cycle of 2016. Harrison with you. This is, of course, a special edition of Go Harrison. You can follow us anytime on Twitter at Go Harrison, one word, at Go Harrison. Also follow us on Facebook, keyword Go Harrison or Carrie Harrison, and we're talking right now about the election. Also opening up the lines in just a moment at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. This is KPFK 90.7 FM Los Angeles, 98.7 in Santa Barbara, 93.7 San Diego, and 99.5 in Ridgecrest, China Lake, streaming live everywhere across our spinning, rotating, counter-rotating orb, soon to counter-rotate, and fall wildly off its axis unless we learn how we can vote early and not so often, because there's a 5-year prison sentence, is there not, if you vote twice? And that's one of the excuses. So many of us are voting twice.
Yeah, because that's one. Don't drop the soap in the shower. Now, listen, back to placebo ballots. Yeah. They're telling, if you walk in and ask and you say, I'm an NPP, that means I'm an independent voter, I'm a non-party preference voter. If you're an NPP voter, you walk in and say, give me my crossover Democratic Party ballot, and say, sorry, we're going to give you a provisional ballot. Don't fill it out, okay? One, you're not entitled to have it, so it'll be thrown out. Provisional ballots were created by George Bush in the help of... sorry.
Excuse me.
He's allergic to that Bush thing every time.
I have this reverse peristaltic surge that I just can't seem to control.
So when your President Bush...
Yes, mine.
When your President Bush wrote the Help America Vote Act, and you know what happens when Bush helps us vote. He's helping America vote, and one thing he did was create something called a provisional ballot, because in the 2000 election, what I found, and Greg Palast here, as an investigative reporter, is that Katherine Harris and Jeb Bush in Florida had knocked off tens of thousands of black folk off the voter rolls, calling them criminal felons. Their only crime, every single one was innocent, except for the crime of voting while black. So the Congressional Black Caucus said we should have a ballot for people whose names have been wrongly removed from the voter rolls.
Yeah.
That's called a provisional ballot. Bush said, that's cool, except the Black Caucus didn't get one thing. They got the right to a provisional ballot, but they didn't get the right to have it counted. So if your name is not on the voter rolls...
Wait, whoa. So it's like publishing a million copies of a book, but they're not allowed to be put on the library shelves.
Right.
They're there, but you don't have access to them.
All the pages have been stuck together.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So you get a provisional ballot. You get to pretend to vote, and you stick it in an envelope. And whatever knocked you off the regular ballot in the first place will knock off the reading. If you're not on the rolls, even if it's unfair, it's wrong, it's stupid, it's crazy, it's insane, it doesn't matter. Your vote still doesn't count. So it's almost impossible to get a provisional ballot counted if there's a close race. It just doesn't happen. So it's meaningless. So in other words, I want to repeat this. If you're being shunted to a provisional ballot, they're telling you to just, write your name in soap. Now, here's the thing. Yeah. Why is this happening? Who's affected? I mean, if it's all random, it doesn't matter. But according to the latest Golden State poll, Bernie Sanders is leading Hillary Clinton by 40 percentage points. That's about 3-1. 40 percentage points among NPP, no party preference voters, by 40 percentage points. Whereas registered Democrats, Hillary's leading by about 30 percentage points. So if you're a registered Democrat, you're probably voting for Hillary. If you're an NPP voter, which is almost as large as the Democratic Party, you're a Sanders, you generally figure you're a Sanders voter.
Right.
So if you want to get rid of Sanders voters, you just give the NPP voters, the independent voters, a placebo ballot, let them think that they voted. They haven't. That's one trick that's being used. Now, here's why it's ugly, and if you're not in California, you're listening to this, say, I don't care about this stuff. What about me? I'm in Utah. Aren't I important? Yes, you are, schmuck. You
take that.
Well, it's a Mormon word, so it's just inside thing.
Yes.
In Salt Lake City. But
it means jewelry in German, and it means something else in Yiddish.
Jewelry.
Yes.
It affects the rest of the country because these provisional ballots are handed out like candy, mainly to minority voters. If I spoke, if you go to gregpalast.com, you read my story of placebo ballots. A true story. I went to Palm Springs and was in front of a book audience, about 200 people, and it's Palm Springs, so there were two black folk in the audience. I asked, how many people, raise your hand if you've ever been given a provisional ballot, one of these crap placebo, throw it in the garbage ballots, back of the bus ballots. There were two black men in the audience.
Yeah.
The two black men raised their hand. They'd received provisional ballots. No one else. So if you don't know what a provisional ballot is, it means you're white. Right. Okay. If you're black, you know exactly what it is. You're Hispanic, Asian American, Native Americans get more than anyone, and they throw these ballots away. Now, they use all kinds of cockamamie reasons. And if you want to know how many, the official count of provisional ballots tossed in the garbage can officially in the last presidential election was 2.1 million. 2.1 million ballots thrown in the garbage. And do keep in mind that George Bush won by only 537 votes to become president of the United States. 2.1 million ballots thrown in the garbage. So this affects everyone. And Hillary may find it cute in California, but it won't be cute in November because it's a GOP trick that's been used on minority voters viciously and by the millions.
And we're going to get into that in just a moment, including massive disenfranchisement, which is what you're talking about. But there's also other tricks up the sleeves that may affect some 7 million. We're going to pause for just a moment. Harrison with you. This is a special edition of Go Harrison here on KPFK 90.7 FM in Los Angeles, 98.7 FM, Santa Barbara 93.7 in San Diego, 99.5 in Ridgecrest, China Lake. You can follow us anytime at Go Harrison. We're also taking your live tweets right now at Go Harrison and your phone calls at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735 as we continue with the BBC's Greg Palast with Rolling Stones, newly imported Greg Palast, now back in his hometown of Los Angeles. And we're going to get into some 7 million of us out of the 327 million Americans who may not be allowed to vote. You may show up. You may think you're voting. You may be told, sorry, go home. How is that going to work? Hang on. More to come.
From Hollywood, this is Harrison.
KPFK Film Club members, are you in for a treat? 2 one-of-a-kind events at the Cinefamily Theater. On May 30th, Cinefamily hosts the 5 Minutes Game. First, a screening of 5 minutes of 15 interesting movies you've likely never seen before. Then, votes for the favorite film during a barbecue in the patio. And afterwards, you watch the winning film. Such a terrific idea. Then, on June 12th, a fascinating double feature. Raiders of the Lost Ark, the adaptation and the story of the greatest fan film ever made, with the filmmakers in person. 3 preteens make a scene-for-scene remake of their favorite film. This one-of-a-kind film is a unique and amazing experience. KPFK Film Club members can call 818-985-2711 for details and a pair of passes which are limited and subject to availability. And thank you to KPFK's amazing film club partner, the Cinefamily Theater.
Go Harrison.
Harrison with you. It is 20 minutes past the hour. This is a special edition of Go Harrison here on KPFK 97 Los Angeles. That's 90.7, but in modern radio language, we just say 97, but it's actually 90.7. How do you like that? If you're also live streaming on kpfk.org, you are probably under the age of 45. Which means you're probably voting for Bernie Sanders. If you're above the age of 50 and listening on the radio with a dial or buttons in your dashboard, you may be voting for Hillary. That's kind of how it works. There's a massive division between digital and analog people. One of the tricks being played, and we're going to sort of break some of this down as we get further in the conversation, how they know what you and I are likely to do and how they might be manipulating that. We're talking right now with Greg Palast, who's now back in Los Angeles from Great Britain, where he's been in exile for many... I'm sure it was luxurious enough for you, right? It wasn't so bad.
Well, the problem was my kids were getting these awful upstairs, downstairs accents. You know, I didn't want my kids to be British.
Right.
You know.
Hello. Yes.
This really was bad.
You could check out his stuff at gregpalast.com. His most recent article, which just came out, is called Placebo Ballot, Stealing California from Bernie using an old GOP vote-snatching trick. And as we know, coming up in just a number of days is the big primary. I mean, this is the money shot for the entire year. California, 38 million people, bigger almost than Canada now, the 7th largest economy in the world, the media capital of Earth. What happens here metastasizes, or if it's a good thing, spreads across the country. So that's why we really live in such an important state. By the way, you also know Greg Palast for uncovering Katherine Harris's purge of black voters from Florida's voter rolls in the year 2000. And he's currently finishing the final frames of his new film on the upcoming theft of this election, 2016, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, A Tale of Billionaires and Ballot Bandits. We're going to jump to the phones in just a second. We'll go to Jay and Roger, and we'll talk to them in a moment. One quick question, Greg, because I had paused and said, well, when we come back, we're going to talk about disenfranchising some 7 million, that's with an M, million Americans. Come on, you can't do that.
7 million.
Well, I mean, I suppose you can't do that, but you know what? You can do that.
You can. You got a dream.
Yeah.
And there's something you've never heard of. You know, this is called something called interstate cross-check. And
let me write it down.
Okay, right.
Along with crossover Democratic Party ballots. Yes.
Right. Okay. Interstate cross-check. You don't know what it is, and you're not supposed to know what it is. It's a list of 7 million people who have committed the crime. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Whoop, whoop, alert, alert,
yes.
Crime. 7 million people who've committed the crime of voting twice. Now, you go to vote twice, Harrison, and you go to the slammer.
Half a decade, right?
5 years, that's
yes.
right. And so why?
There is a sex club in Silver Lake called the Slammer. You don't mean that.
No, you're not sentenced to 5 years in Westlake. But
sorry, back to you.
It's happened. Yes. But that's anyway. The voting twice.
That was kind of fun to derail your train of thinking there for a moment and watch it smash all over the tracks and then somehow get it back on. That was good.
Yeah. Okay, I've got my story back up. Okay.
Interstate
cross-check. Okay, so there's a list of 7 million voters,
yes.
Which is secret, which means I have it because I'm an investigative reporter. I got all this. These are people who voted twice. You say, well, Palast, if 7 million people voted twice, how many have been arrested? 3. Now, how difficult is I call now? This is an accusation.
3.
Understand?
Yes.
Nationwide. This is an accusation made by 29 chief voting officials, secretaries of state, little Katherine Harris's,
yes.
who are almost all GOP Republican secretaries of state, who have a list of people who voted twice, and they should be arresting them, right?
Mm-hmm.
In fact, North Carolina hired an FBI agent to go arrest everyone, and they've arrested exactly 0. And I said, why didn't you arrest people for voting twice? And they said, well, they're hard to find. I said, but you've got their address and their phone numbers. I have the list. So I actually met some of these double voters. Okay? A lot of them, believe it or not, are named Michael Jackson, and none of them can moonwalk. And what it is, here's what's going on.
Yeah.
They have accused 7 million people of voting twice. They won't tell you who's on the list. That's a secret because they've committed a crime, and that's
national
criminal
security.
Yes. Confidential criminal investigation. They can't tell you who's on the list. And what they're doing is they're not arresting people. They're simply removing them from the voter rolls. Think about that. Harrison, the last time you knocked off a bank, if you rob a bank.
Don't point at me and say that.
The last time you robbed a bank.
Yes.
Okay, they didn't cancel your bank account. They
right.
sent you to the slammer, right?
Yes.
But here, they don't arrest you for voting twice. They take away your vote. Now, if 7 million people voted twice, you have to look at the list. For example,
So wait a minute. So let's just say, Juan Gomez, who might be likely to vote Democratic. There are likely going to be, hundreds of thousands of Juan Gomez's across the U.S.?
Well, I was looking. They have the entire Jackson 5 on there. In fact, it's the Jackson 50,000. They have 50,000 people named Jackson on there. And see what it is. Here's the trick.
Yeah.
These are actual names from the list. Okay,
Right.
Maria Isabel Hernandez voted in Virginia,
Right.
and Maria Cristina Hernandez voted in Georgia. And they're saying that Maria Cristina Hernandez is the same voter as Maria Isabel Hernandez
in another
voting
state.
two different states. They have Social Security numbers.
Right.
They don't match.
Right.
They have, for guys, junior and seniors, they don't match. They have addresses that don't match. They have all the information on these people that doesn't match. They have different, So anyway, but they're saying
they
that
could.
they could conceivably.
Yeah.
So Maria Isabel could have conceivably
Jumped on an airplane.
Yes. Changed her middle name, and
flown
voted
business class.
Right. So what's happened is, what it is, it's a list of common names. You say, well,
Right.
why would they bother with that? It's just a bunch of people whose first names and last names match. I kid you not. This is all they're doing. First and last name match. But what that means is, if your last name is Lee, Wong, Nguyen, Jackson, Brown, right?
Yes.
Okay, we're getting there?
Yes.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Fernandez?
Yes.
Okay, in other words, basically, the history of immigration and the history of slavery in the United States is common names. They knock off people with common names.
Who are likely to vote in a certain way.
Well, let's not bring that up. Are you telling me that black people vote Democratic?
Well,
is that what you're accusing them of? And you're also
Let's
saying...
do a syllogism. Maybe not all black people do, but some will. A lot.
Yeah, well, yeah, and apparently twice.
Yes.
And in fact, I just looked it up that there is a Michael Jackson who's voted 588 times according to Interstate Crosscheck. So literally, they're pulling out people named Michael Jackson. Here's the evil thing: you show up to vote.
That
you
was
don't even,
evil.
You don't
Is there
even
more?
know. You don't
Does it
even
get
know.
worse?
Yeah, you don't even know that you're on this list.
Yeah.
They just tell you, sorry, your name's off the list.
So you show up to vote,
and you're not there,
and you just simply aren't on the printout. And so Mildred's sitting there with her thick glasses, looks down. You know, they take your driver's license and they go on, and she says you're not there,
right?
And then she doesn't know what to do, but she'll
give you one of those placebo
provisional ballots. Wait a minute, it's called the crossover. No, but she won't give that to you because you have to ask for it.
Right.
All right, hold on just a second here. We're talking to Greg Palast, investigative reporter, news-breaking stories appearing on the BBC. He's here on behalf of Rolling Stone magazine, has brought him back to the United States from Great Britain to do an explosive investigation on the 2016 elections and all the monkey shines and craziness, thefts, bait and switch going on here. We're going to jump to the phones right now, 818-985-KPFK. We've got a full board here, so we'll try to go through fairly rapid fire here. Go Harrison. It's a special edition here. Carrie Harrison with you. You can follow us. We're also taking your live tweets right now at Go Harrison. One word, at Go Harrison. Follow us on Facebook, keyword Go Harrison, or Carrie Harrison, KPFK 90.7 Los Angeles, 98.7 in Santa Barbara, 93.7 in San Diego, and 99.5 in Ridgecrest, China Lake. Let's go to Jay in Los Angeles. Hi, you're on Go Harrison.
Hey, good afternoon.
Great to have you on board.
Hey, welcome home, Greg.
Hey, thanks, Jay.
And blessings, and I appreciate and admire your zeal. I just wanted to perhaps give you some fact-checking on Los Angeles County. I'm a trained and now have taken the oath to be a poll precinct inspector.
Good.
For Tuesday's election, and you're correct in that the sample ballot that goes out, and I read it says, each political party has the option to adopt a party rule permitting nonpartisan voters to request their party's president's ballot. This is known as a crossover ballot.
Yes.
A nonpartisan voter can ask a poll worker at their polling place for a ballot for those political parties.
Yes.
However, we are trained as follows, and I'll read it right out of our book in Los Angeles County. It says, find the voter's name and address in the roster or the blue supplemental pages. Check the status column. Check the party column. It should show NPP. Ask all nonpartisan voters, do you wish to vote for the presidential candidate from the American Independent, Democratic, or Libertarian Party?
Yes.
So we're required to ask that in Los Angeles County.
Yes, I know that. And what I was saying is here's the problem. And you're required to give an NPP voter ask for it,
right,
that Democratic.
There's 8 different ballots this time. including 3 crossovers.
It's monstrous. It's complex. But
the
what
ballots all go in the same ballot box, and they counted exactly.
And this is a key point, because what we're talking about is when they say, do you want to vote for the American Independent Party? This is not what you think you are when you're an independent, is it, Greg?
No, if you are registered American Independent, you're not independent. You're part of a party called American Independent, the old George Wallace Party. Second, if you go in and say, I'm an independent, I want an independent ballot, you will get the American Independent Party ballot. It won't have Clinton or Sanders on it. But the caller is absolutely correct. By the rule book, and this is the problem. Jay, bless you, you're telling us what the rules are. And what I'm warning people about is that there is trickery afoot. And especially in Orange County, they are telling poll workers to ignore the rules in the rule book. Not only because that's what Jay was telling you is not only L.A. County. That applies in Orange. That applies all over the state. They're supposed to tell you if you're an NPP voter, you even without you asking, you have that right to the Democratic Party ballot or Independent or Libertarian. And so Jay is 100% right. The problem is that we are getting all this information from all over the place, that the poll workers are being misinformed. And this is a problem. And just because they're misinformed, you're going to lose your vote. Well, now, there's one other thing, too, by the way. Let me just grab one other thing.
Do you mean misinformed or disinformed while you look at that?
Yeah. Well, that's the problem. Is it misinformed or disinformed?
Yeah.
You know what the problem is? I can't reach into the criminal mind. I can only see the.
You can only talk about it.
I can say, ooh, that's nasty, wrong, illegal, sickening, disgusting, biased, and partisan.
Right.
But I can't say that was their intent.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
It could just be massive screw up. Why is it always a massive screw up that screws up the progressives? That's what I want to know. Now, so I do appreciate Jay saying what the law is, and he's darn right that the law is they better give you that correct ballot, not the placebo provisional
which
ballot.
You're looking at right now. You're looking at a ballot here.
No, I'm looking at the application to vote by mail.
Okay.
I happen to be, because I'm a journalist, I am NPP, no party preference.
Me too.
Now, if you want to vote in the Democratic primary on Tuesday, you have that right as an independent voter. But what you have to do, if you're normally a mail-in voter, which is nearly half of the people in California, if you're normally a mail-in voter, you have to take the physical ballot in, your mail-in ballot, and say, if you haven't already mailed this in, if you haven't mailed in the ballot, take it in and say, I want my crossover Democratic ballot if you want to vote in that primary.
Yes.
But you have to have that basically your sample ballot or your ballot. You have to have your ballot in hand. You have to turn in the ballot that was mailed to you, the NPP ballot that was mailed to you. Are you ready? Are you taking this down? It's crazy. You
Jim Crow comes to mind here.
So you got to take your NPP ballot that you were mailed, walk it into the polling station, and exchange it for the crossover Democratic ballot. I hope you guys are paying attention. If you're driving, don't write this down. Just go to gregpalast.com. We'll have the information up there. And Go Harrison as well.
Thank you. What if they go to mail me my ballot and somehow they decide that isn't my address? Because I might have got a P.O. box or I don't know. Well, whatever. They just decide that isn't really my address.
Oh, there's something else. 1 in 6.
Yes.
Let me repeat this. In California, about 1 in 6 registrations, the people who keyed in your registration when you filled out that registration form, about 1 in 6 are miskeyed. And so the address is wrong, your name is wrong or something. So your address is wrong, you don't get the ballot. Or your name is wrong, and you go in to vote, and they say, but your name is Berklick.
Spelled S-M-I-T-H.
Yes, right. So this is a problem, or the problem that we had in Arizona. I can't make this up. Where at one polling place where we had the people watching, they were looking up Hispanic voters named Juarez under W,
right,
and then giving them provisional ballots. They're giving them the provisional placebo ballots. So you've got a big problem here. But if you were mailed the ballot and it says in teeny weeny print to request a crossover ballot for the Democratic, American Independent, or Libertarian Party. I'm reading this like 0.4 type size in red, pencil red. Presidential. Please check the box below with your party preference And it says,
Your squinting is hurting me watching.
I know, I can't even do this. I can't even read it. I am not. See, it's vicious attack on those over 42. I am not presently. You got to read this whole thing. Got to sign all this stuff and fill out all this stuff and get it in. By the way, Thursday last week. It's too late if you want to mail this in.
Get it today? Did it come today?
Yes. And so what's happened is that you get these things in the mail. It says you have to send it back. If you didn't send it back in time, say, oh gosh, I missed my chance to vote. No, take your mail-in ballot. And I want to thank Dorothy Reek for reminding me to say this on the air. She is, by the way, a candidate, but I'm not endorsing her. But I'm blessing her for reminding me. Yes. Take in your mail-in ballot into the polling place and hand it to them and say, give me the crossover Democratic Party ballot if you want to vote in the Democratic Party primary. If you don't give a flute.
So there. Well, or just go with me to the polling place on Tuesday, and we'll get you a P.O. box in West Hollywood. I've never had a problem there, and we can all vote together. But it's too late. So, again, the interesting conundrum. We're going to talk more in just a moment as we pause. We're talking to Greg Palast, investigative reporter whose news-breaking stories appear on BBC television, The Guardian, brought back to the U.S. He's been in exile, not for being naughty, for being naughty and telling the truth. And during the Bush administration, Swingin' Dick Cheney and others thought that was really an unswell idea. So they banished him to Great Britain, which, of course, used to be our enemy because you couldn't say anything against the king. It was now the king that let us say things against the other king. So an amazing conundrum. But he's now back, thanks to Rolling Stone magazine, doing a documentary right now and just finishing it up on the 2016 election, something that is happening right now as we speak, as we break down how you can participate in this election, the tricks they're playing. Because if you understand what they're pulling, you can navigate the shoals of confusion and get around it and get your voice heard in what's left of our little Jeffersonian experiment called democracy, something Aristotle would have thrilled at, except it'd be a lowercase a at this point in 2016. That documentary, by the way, is going to be called The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, a tale of billionaires and ballot bandits. We're taking your live tweets at GoHarrison, plus your live calls. The board is full, but you could probably still squeeze in 818-985, KPFK, 818-985-5735. This is a special edition of Go Harrison, back in a flash.
90.7 KPFK, Los Angeles.
GoHarrison.com.
Today's celebrity homeschooling moment. Teaching Robert F. Kennedy Jr. how to pronounce radio call letters.
What is it called, K?
KPFK.
Is that a pneumatic device for something?
Or if you say it really quickly, it's naughty.
Hey, fuck.
That's it.
Fuck.
Are you ready?
Harry Dangler.
It's your reality bite. Football fans now know that proper football success requires cheating on your wife, flogging the kids with a switch, and an occasional murder to sharpen one's tackling skills. Now the notion of ball deflation may be paramount to better ball-passing skills. In San Juan, Puerto Rico, several priests have been admonished by parish officials for a murky charge connected to inflating a soccer ball during a church event to raise money for wayward young boys.
Father Matthias, put the valve outside of the carton.
Brilliant, Father. Shh. Here they come.
Doesn't look like the valve on my mom's exercise ball.
Why is there hair growing on it?
Hey, it's pointing at me like an accusation.
It looks like it's getting bigger.
Yeah, why is it all sticky?
Just put your lips around it, son.
All right, here it goes. Ow.
Oh, that's a brilliant idea of yours.
Thank you. Bless you, child. Ew, I think I swallowed an oyster.
That's not how you do it. Let me try.
Show me.
You're going to be a Republican senator one day.
I'm Harry Dangler, and there's your reality bite.
Harry Dangler.
Hi, this is Vanessa Carlisle, host of Sex Please here on KPFK. Join me and my co-host Danny Cruz as we talk all things sex, gender, sexual politics. Wednesday nights at midnight, join the conversation. Listen to Sex Please Wednesday nights at midnight here on KPFK.
Harrison Special Report.
Harrison with you. It is 40 minutes past the hour. Make that 38.7 minutes past the hour. This is a special edition of Go Harrison. We're taking your live tweets right now at Go Harrison. One word, at Go Harrison. Follow us also on Facebook. Keyword, Go Harrison or Carrie Harrison. Going to be giving away some trips and some other stuff. Fun stuff for you. Yep. It's all in store. All good, clean fun. Fun for the kids, fun for the family. We're talking right now to Greg Palast, author of the New York Times bestsellers, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, Billionaires and Ballot Bandits, Armed Madhouse, and the highly acclaimed Vulture's Picnic, plus the world-famous comic book. Let me have a look at that. Seriously. Look, let's admit it, we all go see the Marvel movies, don't we? We sure do. Well, Greg is now author of this fabulous comic book called Steal Back Your Vote. You know, I just love the fact that the only way you can actually get grown-up information out is to put it in a comic book, Greg.
I love it. You know, that Steal Back Your Vote, which I wrote, by the way, with that comic genius Bobby Kennedy Jr.
Yes. He's funny.
And Ted Rowell, who is a great comic genius penman. Steal Back Your Vote, which, by the way, you can get the paper version by going to gregpalast.com. You can, if you go to gregpalast.com, we'll put a link with Go Harrison. You can get a free download version of Steal Back Your Vote, which, by the way, was the number one selling adult graphic single issue comic book of all time, according to comicbook.com.
Really?
Yep. And so this is like the ultra best-selling comic book, called Steal Back Your Vote.
Here's why that's interesting. I mean, you already know why that's interesting. I'm going to tell you why that's interesting.
Actually, I don't know why.
If the top-selling graphic comic book is about the issues that we are talking about, this tells you how many people actually really do care, even though the CNN and the MSDNC and the others tell us that we don't really care. We really do.
Well, see, MSDNC and all the others, the NBC Peacock and all that, these guys, cats, they have turned stupid into a profit center, right? Mm-hmm. And so they want to convince you that you're stupid and that you don't want information. But, you know, the fact that I have these best-selling, and like my book that's going to be made into the movie, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, that was on the top of the Times bestseller list for 7 months. And that, you know, it had a lot of weird fun in it, but a lot of death, destruction, and disease and stolen elections. But
entertaining.
It was entertaining, you know. It was a page turner, but still, and people wanted something that they could like dig their teeth into it. That's why I made the last page into, you know, it's bubblegum, but it's, but no, you can really dig your teeth into.
Sure.
People actually want some stuff that unstupids them.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's why you can have an unstupid comic book. I mean, there's a lot of weird humor in it, but it's like, you know, that's how it is. It's the only way we can survive is by laughing at this stuff. I mean, stolen elections really is a laugh if you get into it. But, you know, you laugh or you cry or you upchuck, whatever. But, so please download the comic book. It's gratis. And I do want you to take
That means free.
Yeah, right. I'm sorry. I forgot. I was talking Yiddish again. Mormon, whatever it is. Right, gratis.
So let's do this. I've been rude. I should be taking calls.
Yep.
Here I am giving out the phone number. We've got a full board. We're also taking your live tweets at Go Harrison, and I'm sort of translating these 142 basic characters into really quite eloquent questions, I would at least hope. But let's actually have the audible pleasure of a telephonic transfer here. Let's say hi to Carol in Los Angeles. You're on Go Harrison.
Hi. The reason I'm calling is because earlier you said that if you can't turn in an NPP ballot for a Democratic ballot, that you should not accept a provisional ballot. But I think you need to talk about what you should do in order to be able to vote.
Great.
Okay. This is a difficult one because we're heading into election day. There's two things. By the way, if anyone's near Norwalk, vote early. You can do early voting. There's one single early voting station for all of Los Angeles County, which is sick and weird and strange and ugly.
A 14 million person city. There's one.
They got one voting place for LA County in Norwalk. But if you're there, I would do that so that if there's a problem, you can try it again.
Yeah.
The other is if you go in, they say your name's not on the voter rolls well, number one, if you're an NPP voter and they say, oh, well, NPP voters have to get a provisional ballot, say absolutely not. Demand a adjudication. There should be a polling judge nearby or one available that they can obtain. Get the judge to adjudicate that you have the right to a ballot, and you do. Now, there's two things. If you're an NPP voter, you're supposed to get a crossover Democratic Party ballot. I'm also afraid of this gimmick. They're going to run out of ballots. I'm telling you that now. And one of the things that they might do is say, well, don't worry about running out of ballots. You can just fill out a provisional ballot. If you're not entitled to one of these provisional weird placebo ballots and you fill one out, they throw that out too. You can't just say, well, I'll take a provisional. You can't ask for a crappy ballot.
Yeah.
That doesn't count either. So this is a real conundrum because what do you do when they've run out of ballots, crossover Democratic Party ballots for the NPP voter? You got that?
Right.
What do? You do ask for an adjudication. You do tell them to get some more ballots. I'll be back. Voting is not easy anymore. Sorry. Okay? I was just in Selma, Alabama, where Martin Luther King led the marchers over the bridge at the Edmund Pettus Bridge in 1965. Mm-hmm. They beat the crap out of these people. Well, I talked to one girl. She was 14 years old at the time, and they beat her bloody and then locked her in a steel cage. I mean, when I say steel cage, I don't mean with bars. I mean it was just closed until she passed out, okay? 4 people were murdered on that march. Okay, so for Martin Luther King to get the vote for African Americans in the South, in Mississippi, in Alabama, okay? It wasn't easy. I'm not asking you to walk into billy clubs. I'm not asking you to march 50 miles from Selma to Montgomery. I am saying it might be a little more difficult than just walking in and filling out a piece of paper. It might take a couple trips. It might take demanding your rights. It might take I need to get a polling judge in here now. That's
46 minutes past the hour. Harrison with you. You're hearing the voice of Greg Palast. The hard part for both of us as we're looking at each other while he's talking is there is no exact answer. Thank you, by the way, for that call, Carol. And
Thanks,
we're going to go to Roger and Morris and Berta, Jim and John from Westlake Village to Venice in just a moment. This is the problem, is we can't answer it because there are so many layered tricks. What we can do is identify the tricks so that you can spot them if they're in your way. And then you know to ask so many uncomfortable questions that somebody's going to have to give at some point. And I would imagine most of the poll workers are decent people like you and me. Mm-hmm. They don't know that they've been disinformed or misinformed. Right. They probably would like you to be able to vote, and they'll probably extend themselves in some way to help you out if you ask.
There's a lot of people who want to do the right thing. You just heard a poll worker. In fact, the reason I found out about poll workers being told to give the independent NPP voters in California, give them provisional placebo ballots, FACO ballots, is because some poll workers are really shaken up about this. Like, we know that those ballots aren't going to be counted. We know that this is wrong. So, yeah, most poll workers, by the way, are really very, very helpful, and they want to be on your side. But one thing they can't do is that if you're listed as being a person who's supposed to get a mail-in ballot, and you walk in, you want to vote, say, I didn't get my ballot, or you say that I didn't, I don't have it with me, they can't let you vote if you're listed as a mail-in voter unless you walk in with that ballot to exchange it on Election Day in the precinct. So please bring your ballot, bring ID. If you didn't get your ballot and you were supposed to call the county, if you want to know where you're supposed to vote, you go to something called LA Vote. Okay, LA Vote, that website. That's the official voting location. And if you're near Norwalk, you can walk in today and vote. But that's the only – I mean, by the way, it's an obscenity. This is the other thing that just drives me crazy. We have a nominally Hispanic mayor of Los Angeles. He
Right.
should be trying to get people to vote. This is a trick normally used by redneck Republicans to stop people from voting by limiting the number of early voting stations. We got one for Los Angeles County? They got to be kidding me. I mean, even in racist, awful places like Virginia, or Mississippi,
right.
You'll have 10 in a county that are 1/100th of our size. Okay. The second thing is that Jerry Brown in 2012 signed a law that would eliminate the provisional ballot problem by allowing registration or re-registration on Election Day. That was 4 years ago, Governor. And the only thing he had to do was put in place a system of checking your residence that you're not registered in another county.
Right.
He's had 4 years. 4 years to make it easier to vote. This is nuts. Okay, what is the advantage to Brown of suppressing the vote? What is the advantage to the mayor of suppressing the vote? You have to ask yourself. And one of the problems is
money,
that
power, prestige.
One of the problems is that ultimately there's one party called the incumbents,
yeah.
Okay, or the Hezbollah Shekel, the party of the cash, okay, more Mormon language, and it's someone I'm going to get nasty calls from Utah.
I'm
Mitt
reading the
Romney
tweets.
is going to be right on my case, and so anyway. But here's the thing: it's the problem is that the power elite want to keep it a closed system. The fewer the voters, the better. The ruling class thinks that voters are just in the way, and the fewer of them, the better. It's about time someone said to the governor, number one, make sure that there's enough ballots out there on Tuesday, and I fear that there aren't enough. And second, you got to move on getting same-day registration. That is basic to democracy. This cockamamie, mail in your registration form, you never see it and it goes wrong, that's nuts.
Yeah.
Okay, Governor Jerry, I've come home to tell you, man, it's a democracy in California. Give it a try.
Greg Palast reminding us that it's a democracy in California and that we ought to give it a try. You can catch all of his stuff, including his latest story right now, his latest article called Placebo Ballots, Stealing California from Bernie Using an Old GOP Vote Snatching Trick. You can get that at gregpalast.com, GregPalast, gregpalast.com. He's just been brought back by Rolling Stone magazine from Great Britain, where he's doing an explosive undercover documentary on this entire 2016 election. Harrison with you. This is a special edition of Go Harrison here on KPFK 90.7 FM in Los Angeles, 98.7 in Santa Barbara, 93.7 in San Diego, 99.5 in Ridgecrest and China Lake, Central California. Taking your live calls also at 818-985-KPFK. Let's go next to Berta in L.A. Hello, you're on Go Harrison.
Hi.
And turn your radio down.
Yeah, let me do that.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry. I want to call because...
It's like the 1980s.
I'm from the 1960s, so that'll work.
Perfect.
Inagata DeVita, Berta.
They changed my party. I've been a Democrat always, and been voting since Kennedy. And this year, I got paperwork that I was no longer a Democrat. I was Greenpeace.
What?
So they put me in the Green...
The Green Party?
The Green Party. So I had to call and say, hey, what's going on? And they say, oh, well, let me check. And they said, well, we can't find your voter registration. And I said, I've voted every year since Kennedy, and you're telling me now I'm a Green Party instead of a Democrat? And I had to go and re-register. I had my son re-register for me on my line, for myself and my husband, and then I asked, who changed my party? Who gave them the authorization to change my right to vote for who I wanted to some party that I've never been in? And so I had to do all this just for I could vote Democratic.
All right. Hey, thank you so much for that. We're running up against the clock. Thank you, Berta. So, Greg, we're hearing these stories.
A lot of this, people are playing tricks with the voter rolls.
Yeah.
Berta did the right thing.
Yes.
If you get my comic book, Steal Back Your Vote, it has the 7 ways to beat the ballot bandits. And number 3 is register and re-register and re-register. She checked her registration in time to get it switched to what she wanted. This is a big problem. In Nevada, I was just talking to delegates in Nevada. They walked in they were Sanders delegates. 60 of them had their registration changed from Democratic to Republican. These are Democratic Party officials. And so they were disqualified from voting at the state convention for Bernie. Mm-hmm. And that meant that Hillary won by 35 votes at the convention for the extra delegates, with 60 Bernie people being
after
told,
the fact,
you're Republicans. So
yes.
Please, what can I do? Please go to LA Vote and go to the Secretary of State's office, California. Check your registration, which you can do online in California. In fact, every county in America, you can check whether you are still registered as you thought you were. I don't care if you've been voting for Democrats since Kennedy or Republicans since Hoover. It doesn't matter.
Or Coolidge.
You better check your registration because there are people, and I know one guy called Greg Palast, I checked my registration and it went poof. So I had to re-register online, but I did it in time. Please check your registration.
I checked mine, it went poof. But I'm going to check it again and just make sure. I kind of like it that way. Harris with you. We've been talking to Greg Palast, an investigative reporter whose news-breaking stories appear on BBC Television, The Guardian, Rolling Stone magazine. You can always read and watch all of his reports at gregpalast.com, GREGPALAST, plus a free download of that comic book, which is going to give you 7 tips on how to bypass. It's called Steal Back Your Vote. How to bypass the crazy cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs ways they're trying to disengage you from your right to vote. He's also author of the New York Times bestsellers, Best Democracy Money Could Buy and Best Money Democracy Could Buy. Hey, why not, right? That seems to be the plot of their play. Best known here in the U.S. for uncovering Katherine Harris's purge of black voters from Florida's voter rolls in 2000. GregPalast.com. Harris with you. This has been a special edition of Go Harrison here on KPFK 90.7 FM in Los Angeles, 98.7 FM in Santa Barbara. You can tweet us anytime. Follow us on Twitter at Go Harrison, at Go Harrison, as well as on Facebook, keyword Carrie Harrison or Go Harrison. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Remember, vote early, but don't vote twice.
Talk show, random, political, outrageous, philosophical, analytical, passionate, hidden sunsets, roadkill cooking tips, open-minded, swordsman, bent, resolute, investigative, companion, fearless, piercing the cloud of mainstream entertainment.
Go Harrison.
Two bitter rivals go head-to-head amidst the din of reporters, pundits, and spin doctors.
There is nothing like a dirty, low-down political fight to put the roses in your cheeks.
The Best Man by Gore Vidal, starring Marsha Mason and Fred Thompson. Next time on LA Theater Works. LA Theater Works, Thursday evenings at 7 on Southern California Pacifica Radio. KPFK.
It's the return of the real, about as real as you knew. See how I jumped in this for real, yeah, I'm living the proof. Know that you wanted it for real, so I give you the new. And you remember how it feels, yeah, I give you that too. It's the return of the real for the real.
Yo, this is Eastside Long Beach's finest and one half of Reality is Real Radio. It's your boy Bruce.
And I'm South Central's flyest to be the star, the better half of Reality is Real Radio. And we talk about hip-hop from a real perspective.
Real issues, real conversations for real people. Uncensored. Be a realist.
So join us Thursdays midnight here on KPFK Safe Harbor.
And for the visually impaired, they stared until they saw it. It was clear in the sinister.
What's good, y'all?